Hi there, my name is Amethyst Trelevin. This is reading 834 and it is for you, MC. I'm going to focus here for you on the reading, but I'm going to start off here and work our way around my lovey so that I can give a little bit of context if you like. There's no specific questions that you've asked me per se. I'm just having a look at your email again. So we're going to see what comes out of here for you. Ruis or Elder, this one here is the Ogham stave that themes your reading, and this is very much about regret. It's about, you talked about not belonging. What this is all about. It's about what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me that I don't feel part of things? So whilst you talked about in your email, I'll just read a bit of it. You say, first off, I've never felt like I belonged, like I should be here, like I was born at the wrong time or something. An emptiness, like part of me is missing. That's what this is all about. But it takes it a little bit further and says that you keep asking yourself what your fault is, rather than recognising that it may just actually be an imbalance between society's expectations and your own. So you keep looking at yourself and saying, what's wrong with me? These three here are about the past, and we start off here with Sail or Willow. And it's quite interesting that we have these three here, because Sail or Willow is very much about, I guess, intuition. It's about gut instinct, it's about psychic ability, and it's about doing things differently than the way other people do. So you see the world differently than other people. And you talked about perhaps you were born in the wrong time. It actually may be that the skills and the techniques that you have, the tools that you have, the talents that you have, just don't fit in with what society expects of people. So yes, you are a little bit different than other people. You have amazing talents that you don't take into account and that you don't reference as part of being wonderful parts of who you are. Sitting on top of that is pine, and then underneath that is heather. And what I can see when these two are put together is that that lack of community, particularly with heather. It's about lack of feeling part of something, but it's also about lack of self-love. So a lot of this is around lack of self-confidence, lack of self-esteem, but lack of loving yourself. And you mentioned that you felt that you had never been loved, but what this tells me is that you've also felt that you also feel that you've never actually loved yourself. You don't feel worthy of love. You don't feel worthy of loving yourself. In the middle here we have aspen, and this kind of I guess it talks about what's happening in the now, but it also kind of pins it all together a little bit in terms of personality and emotional feeling. And it's about fear, and it's about fear of not belonging. It's about unhappiness and sadness and loss, and there's, you know, the big hole within you. Here we have the next 12 months or so. Oh, please excuse me. And I'm just going to quickly go through each of these four staves, and then I'm going to put it all together for you. This is Bethel Birch, and this is about new beginnings. I'm really pleased to see this here actually, because this is quite positive. However, it is facing the wrong direction, which says that you are blocking yourself from receiving new experiences, partly because you don't believe that you're valid or worthy of them. You know, and again, that's about that limited, oh please excuse me, that self-love that you have for yourself. Engtall or broom sits over the top of that, and that's about sweeping away all of the old experiences, the old hurts, the old behaviours, even people, please excuse me, I have hiccups, that no longer support you. But again, it's facing in the opposite direction, which means that you hold on to your self-sabotaging behaviour, if you like, because it's the only behaviour you know. Okay, so that doesn't make you any less important of a person. It just shows us that you have no fantastic experiences that you can hang on to and say, that's how I want to live my life, that's who I am, I'm proud of me. So there's very little of that. So what you do have is what you hold on to, but what you're holding on to is not supporting you. And so, not surprisingly, underneath that we have Muin or vine. And this is about reaping what you sow. This is about harvest. It's about outcomes. And it's saying to you that it's really important that you begin to look within to see how you can change what's the messages that you give yourself about yourself. Because what's really important that's coming out of here is that you will never receive love from outside until you learn to love yourself. And I'm going to give you a little tool or technique that might help that in a minute. And then down the bottom here we have elder or fan, and this is about giving and receiving advice. And I'm going to give you some right now. This is a technique that I used to give some of my patients when I was practicing as a psych many years ago. I want you to go and get a rubber band, and I want you to put it around your wrist. Now it needs to be a rubber band that is not tight, and I don't want it restricting the blood flow to your hand. Okay, so in actual fact it can be really quite loose, you know, just a rubber band. And I want you to spend 2 or 3 days, and I want you to listen to what your brain says to you about you. I want you to listen to your self-talk. And I want you to hear and write down that self-talk. So if your brain says, for instance, well, I'm just a dumbass, or if your brain says, I don't fit, or your brain says, I'm stupid, or I can't do this, you know, any of that negative stuff, I want you to write it down. I want you to get a pen and write it down on a piece of paper. And I want you to write that down every time you catch your brain saying something negative about yourself. And then after a couple of days, you know, when you've got that list happening, I want you to look at each of those things on that list, and I want you to write a positive, counterproductive counter statement to that. So if your brain says to you, for instance, MC, I feel like an absolute klutz, the opposite to that might be, I am incredibly graceful. Okay, I'll just use that as an example. So you write positive counter statements for each of the negative things that you've caught your brain saying to you about you. Oh, please excuse me. And then every time you catch yourself saying something negative about yourself, you get that rubber band and you pull it and ping it on your wrist. So, you know, like pretend this was a rubber band, you're going to do that. And you do that so that it stings. And yes, your wrist will be bruised. And you do that every single time. And what you're actually doing is using a behavioural technique to retrain your brain to stop telling you that you don't belong, to stop telling you that you're not worthy, to stop telling you that you're unlovable and all of those negative things. And you retrain it to start thinking about yourself more positively. And that will take several weeks. But it's a really good way to begin to learn to love yourself, which is what this one is here, instead of suffocating yourself with the negative things that you say about yourself. So what we really have here is a bit of an ultimatum, if you like. And it's never too late to teach an old dog new tricks, as my dad used to say. So even though you mentioned to me, well, look, you know, at the age I am, 63, I feel that I don't have any happiness or completion by now, I may never get it, is what you said to me. You're absolutely right. If you continue to allow the negative messages that your brain delivers to you to keep doing that, okay? And we can see that here. Vine is very much about reaping what you sow. So if you sow negative messages, you get negative outcomes, all right? Which makes it sound an awful lot easier and simplistic. It's not. It's not. You have led a life of isolation, emotional isolation. You've led a very difficult, very sad, had a whole bunch of really sad experiences, the most of which is about loneliness and feeling a big hole of loss within yourself. and that's been a really difficult burden for you to carry. So using that exercise with the rubber band that I gave you may be one way that you can learn to accept who you are, and more importantly love who you are, because if you can love who you are, you project that to the world, and that in turn allows you to be loved by other people. I'm hoping that makes sense to you. I wanted to talk to you about your Druid Animal Oracle card, who is Hawk. And Hawk is fantastic, particularly in the light of your questions, because Hawk as a bird is a bit of a free spirit, and you do tend to be a bit of a free spirit. You think about things differently than a lot of other people do, and of course that's often been an isolating factor. People don't understand how you think, but that's their problem to deal with, not yours. Hawk kind of asks you to think about the bigger picture of your life, and you can imagine a hawk flying around up here. He has the capacity to see all the little stuff that's going on there, but he can also very, very clearly get a direction for where he's going. There's a little bit of prey down there, off he goes and he gets it, all right? So he's about determination, but he's about determination in a very calm, very cool, very clear, specific way. So I'm going to encourage you to go and Google Hawk and see what else you can find about Hawk, and perhaps use Hawk as a totem animal for yourself, if you like. I also wanted to talk to you about your birth tree, which is Lewis or Rowan. And these are really magical trees, and again it highlights for me how different you are from the rest of people around you. Now when I say that, that's not a negative thing, okay? I need to make that very clear for you. You are different from the rest, from many, many, many people around you, but that is a beautiful thing, okay? You are not mediocre, you are not a sheep. You have the potential to be a leader. You can be a thought leader. You think about things differently. You approach the world differently, and that's what makes you amazing and special and gifted and talented. You just don't appreciate that about yourself. Rowan people guard the way to the spirit world. So I know that you have a great deal of, and it's in these staves as well, you have a great deal of psychic ability, but you don't use it. So I really encourage you to pick up on that and trust that psychic ability, trust that intuition, trust that gut instinct. Focus on it, learn from it, use it, grow it. Very, very powerful with Rowan people. They tend to be quite spiritual as well, and they hold really high ethics and ideals, and they're also artistic as well, you know, those really high thinkers, and so Lewis people, Rowan people are often quite isolated from the rest of the world because they think things so differently. I want you to start thinking of yourself as amazing and gifted as opposed to being a nothing, okay? You are different because you are special, because you are amazing. Also would encourage you to go and Google your Celtic birth deity, who is Bridget. She is blinking inspirational as well. She is amazing. She is a goddess of the hearth and of ironworkers, but she's also a goddess of not of war, not like the Morrigan or anything necessarily, but she's determined, she's different, she is really inspirational. So I encourage you to Google Bridget as well, and learn all you can about her, because she's a fantastic role model for you. And your Celtic birth animal is dragon. How amazing is that? Dragon is an animal that doesn't fit in with normal animals on our earth. Dragon sets himself apart, and rightly so, because he's incredibly talented and really, really special. So again, I encourage you to look at dragon and use dragon as a wonderful inspiration for you. So I'm hoping that has given you a little bit of an insight and an ability to think about things for the next 12 months in a little more positive light, and make some changes that can bring about the outcomes that you would like.